The market was loud, filled with voices that cut through the heavy air. Merchants shouted prices, guards pushed slaves forward, and buyers lifted their hands with greed in their eyes. Among them stood a young alien girl, thin and trembling. Her wrists tied with iron chains, she had no name anymore, only a number carved into the metal collar around her neck. Her skin was pale with strange patterns, marks of her alien blood. Her eyes were large, glowing faintly, but empty of hope. She had been sold before, beaten before, treated as nothing more than a tool. Today, she expected the same. Another cruel master, another life of pain. The auctioneer banged his staff against the wooden platform. "This one," he shouted, dragging her into the light. A weak creature, not much use, but still alive, still breathing. Laughter rose from the crowd, sharp and cruel, worthless. One man called out, "Not even good for labor." Another spat on the ground, "She is broken already." The girl lowered her head, her body shaking. She had learned long ago not to resist, not to show fear. Still, inside her chest, her heart pounded like a trapped bird. She thought, maybe this is the end. Maybe today I will be sold to the worst of them. From the crowd, a new figure stepped forward. A human man, dressed in worn clothes, carrying himself with quiet strength. He was older than many there, lines of hardship across his face. The crowd grew silent for a moment, recognizing him, but unsure what he wanted. He looked at the girl, not with greed, not with disgust, but with a strange calm, as if he saw more than just a broken slave. The auctioneer grinned. "You, human. Will you bid?" "She is cheap, worth less than food." The man raised his hand, steady and sure. "I will take her," he said, voice low but firm. The crowd burst into laughter again. "Why waste coin on trash?" They shouted. "Maybe he needs a toy," another jeered. The girl's heart sank lower. Sure, this man was no different. Chains rattled as she was pushed toward him, her steps weak, coins changed hands. And the deal was done. The auctioneer waved them away, eager to move on to stronger bodies, but whispers spread through the market. Why would a human buy such a useless alien? What purpose did he have? The girl did not dare to look at him. She followed because the chains forced her. In her mind, she repeated the same thought. Another master, another cage. Her hope was gone. Long buried, they walked through narrow streets. The noise of the auction fading behind, the man said nothing. His steps steady, his eyes forward. The girl waited for the order to kneel, or the strike of a hand, but nothing came. Only silence. Finally, he stopped before a small transport vehicle. He turned to her and spoke. "You are safe now." She froze, the words echoing strange in her ears. Safe. She had never heard that word from a master. Her chains were still on, her body still marked. How could she be safe? Her mind told her it was a trick, another cruel game, but his eyes were different. They were tired eyes, yet filled with something she did not know. Not cruelty, not hunger, but something else. Something she could not name. As the engine roared, and the vehicle lifted from the ground, the girl sat in silence, her hands still trembling. She did not understand him, this human who bought her, and the man did not explain. He only drove forward, gaze fixed on the horizon, yet his words lingered. In the air, "You are safe now." The girl turned her head to the window. The market was far behind, the chains still heavy. But for the first time in many years, a small spark of confusion burned inside her. Confusion that almost felt like hope, and deep inside, hidden in shadows of the streets, others watched, their eyes following the human and the alien girl. Their whispers were cold, dangerous. She is not meant to be free. They said, "Find them, and bring her back." The girl did not know it yet, but her journey had only begun. The day she was sold as worthless was the day her true story started. The transport moved quietly through the dark streets. The alien girl sat still, her wrists heavy with chains, her eyes fixed on the floor. She waited for pain, for shouting, for commands. That was always how it began with new masters. But the human man beside her did not speak. His hands gripped the controls. His face calm and unreadable. Only once did he glance at her. And when he did, his gaze carried no cruelty. Instead, it carried something else, something she could not understand. When the transport stopped, she expected a prison, a cage, or a camp instead. The doors opened to a small house. Quiet and simple, the man stepped out first, then helped her down. She resisted, trembling. Sure, it was a trick, but his grip was firm and careful, not harsh. Inside, the house smelled of warmth, food, and old books. The air was soft, not filled with smoke or sweat like the slave markets. The man placed a chair by the table and gestured for her to sit. She did not move. Her body remained stiff, her eyes wide with fear. Finally, he spoke. "You are free to sit." His voice was low, steady, without anger. Still, she stayed standing, her chains rattling. Her heart screamed that no master would allow such things. The man sighed, walked into the other room, and returned with bread and a cup of water. He set them on the table, sliding them toward her. Her stomach tightened, hunger twisting inside, but she did not touch the food. In the past, food was used as punishment, sometimes poisoned, sometimes bait. She whispered, voice small, "Why?" The man sat across from her, his tired eyes meeting hers. "Because you need it." He said, no more words, just that simple reason. She did not believe him, not yet, but hunger was stronger than fear. Her shaking hands lifted the bread, slow and careful. She bit into it, waiting for pain. But only warmth filled her mouth. Tears burned her eyes as she ate. The man watched, but he did not rush her. When she finished, he stood and unlocked the chains around her wrists. The iron fell heavy onto the floor. She gasped, pulling back in shock. No master had ever removed chains so easily. Her breath came fast, her chest rising and falling. "What do you want?" she whispered, her voice cracked with fear. The man shook his head. "Nothing," he replied. "Only that you rest." He showed her a small room with a bed and a blanket. The girl froze at the door, afraid to enter. Beds were for masters, never for slaves. "Sleep," he said gently. "You will not be harmed here." Then he walked away. Leaving her alone, she stepped inside slowly, touching the blanket with shaking fingers. It was soft, too soft for her rough skin. She sat on the bed, unable to believe this was real. Her mind whispered, "It is a trap. It must be a trap." Yet her body was tired, so tired, for the first time in years. She laid down, her eyes closed, but her heart stayed awake. She could not sleep fully. She waited for footsteps, for pain, but only silence filled the room. Hours passed. The house quiet, except for the sound of the night wind. The girl rose, her bare feet moving across the floor. She peeked into the other room. The man sat by a small desk, a dim light over him. In his hands, he held a small medal and an old photo. She could not see the faces, but she saw the sadness in his eyes. His lips moved softly, whispering words she barely caught. "She will be safe with me, no matter what." The girl stepped back quickly, her heart racing. Was he speaking about her? Why would he say such a thing? Her old masters had called her worthless, a burden, trash. Yet this man spoke as if her life mattered. She did not understand, and that frightened her more than chains. Back in her room, she sat by the window. The stars shone bright against the black sky. Once, long ago, she had dreamed of freedom, of choosing her own path. But those dreams had been crushed again and again. Now, one strange human threatened to awaken them again. Her mind fought against it. Do not believe, do not hope. Hope only brings pain. But her heart whispered something different. Her heart whispered that, maybe, just maybe, this man was not like the others. Still, shadows followed them. Back in the city, slavers whispered in the dark. They had seen the human take her away, and they did not like it. She was sold too cheap. One said, she belongs to us. Another growled, find her, bring her back, or make them both pay. The girl did not know it yet. But the kindness she had seen was only the beginning. The slavers would not stop, and the price of her freedom would soon come. The sun rose slowly, painting the sky with pale light inside the small house. The alien girl opened her eyes. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then the memories of the auction returned. The chains, the human who had bought her. She sat up quickly, fear tightening her chest. But there were no guards, no orders, no whips. Only the quiet sound of a pan from the other room. The smell of food drifted into the air, warm and gentle. She moved slowly to the doorway, her bare feet silent. On the floor, the human stood by the stove, cooking something simple. He turned his head and saw her. You can sit, he said calmly. Breakfast is almost ready. His voice carried no command. Only an invitation. The girl hesitated, her instincts screaming at her not to trust, but her stomach growled loudly, betraying her hunger. She sat at the edge of the table, her hands clenched tight. The man placed bread, eggs, and a cup of water before her. He sat across from her with his own plate. For the first time in her life, she was eating at the same table as a master. She stared at the food, then at him. Why? She whispered again. He only said, because you are not a slave here. Her heart pounded at those words. Not a slave, the idea was too strange. Too impossible. She picked up the bread slowly, still waiting for a trick, but no trick came. Only the quiet morning and the taste of food after they finished eating. The man stood and said, I need to go to the town for supplies. He looked at her with steady eyes. You may stay here. You are safe. Then he handed her a blanket. If you are cold, use this. When he left, silence filled the house. The girl sat still. Holding the blanket tight, part of her wanted to believe his words. But another part whispered that safety was a lie. She walked around the small house, touching the walls, the shelves, the books. Everything here felt so different from the cages and markets. It felt human. Her eyes caught something unusual. A wooden box, small and locked, hidden under the desk. Curiosity burned inside her. Masters always had secrets, and secrets always meant danger. She looked around, her breath quick. Then, with trembling fingers, she pulled the box out. The lock was simple, and after some effort, it clicked open. Inside lay a medal. Old and heavy, shining faintly in the light. Beside it was a folded letter, worn at the edges, and a photo of a smiling woman holding a child. The girl froze, her hands shaking. These were not the things of a cruel master. They were things of loss of memory, of pain. Her chest tightened, a strange ache she could not explain. She quickly put everything back, pushing the box into its place. But her thoughts would not leave her. Who was that woman? Who was the child? Why did this man keep such things? The door creaked. The man returned with a bag of supplies. She jumped back, her heart racing. Had he seen her? Did he know? He set the bag down and looked at her. You are restless, he said softly. She lowered her eyes. Guilt burning inside her, she expected anger, punishment, shouting, but none came. Only silence. That night, as darkness filled the house, the girl lay awake. She thought of his words, his eyes, the photo. For so long she had known only cruelty. But this man confused her. He risked money to buy her. He gave her food. he gave her rest, and he had secrets of his own. Secrets filled with sorrow. Sleep pulled at her, and in her dreams she saw the market again. The chains, the jeers, the cruel laughter. But this time the human stood between her and the crowd. His voice strong, his hand reaching out. "You are safe now," he said. She woke with tears on her face, the words echoing in her mind. The next day, they walked together into town. People stared at her with cold eyes. Some whispered, others laughed. She felt small under their gaze, but the human walked beside her, calm and steady. When a man stepped forward and sneered, "Why keep that alien trash? Sell her before she rots your house." The human's eyes turned sharp. "She is mine to protect," he said firmly. The crowd fell silent, not daring to push further for the first time. The girl felt something different, not just safety, but protection, not just kindness, but strength. Her heart whispered that maybe she could trust him. Maybe he was not like the others, but trust was dangerous. And as they returned home, shadows moved in the distance. Men in dark clothes, slavers, with cruel smiles. They had followed, watching, waiting. The girl did not see them yet, but soon she would. And the fragile bond between her and the human would be tested. The night was quiet. The house wrapped in silence. The alien girl sat on her bed, her hands pulling the blanket close. She had seen the metal, the letter, the photo, and now her mind refused to rest. Who was the woman? Who was the child? Why did the human keep their memories so carefully? Her heart told her she should not have touched the box, but her fear whispered that secrets always brought danger. If he discovered what she had done, would he cast her out or punish her like other masters once did? She shivered, her breath shallow, waiting for the sound of footsteps. The human sat in the other room, the dim lamp flickering beside him. He held the metal again, his thumb running across its surface. His eyes were far away, trapped in memories. She could not see. For a moment his lips moved, and his voice broke the silence. "I failed them," he whispered, "but not again." The girl leaned against the wall, her chest tightening. She did not understand his words, but she felt the weight of them. It was the sound of loss, the sound of pain hidden too long. Her heart ached without reason, as if his grief touched something deep inside her when the lamp finally went out. She closed her eyes. Sleep came slow, filled with restless dreams. She dreamed of fire, of chains breaking, of stars beyond reach, and through it all, the human's voice echoed, "You are safe now." Morning came with a pale sky. The human rose early, preparing supplies. The girl stayed quiet, her eyes lowered. Her mind repeated the same thought. "He knows, he must know I touched the box." Her hands trembled as she sat at the table, waiting for his anger. But the anger never came. Instead, he set food in front of her, bread and fruit, simple but fresh. "Eat," he said, his voice calm as always. She looked at him sharply, searching his face. Did he know? Did he not care? "Finally," she whispered. The box, his hand froze for a moment, then rested flat on the table. Her chest tightened, fear choking her. "I looked," she admitted, her voice shaking. "I am sorry." Silence filled the room. Heavy and long, the human lifted his eyes, meeting hers with steady calm. "I knew you would," he said at last. Her eyes widened in shock. You are not angry?" she asked. He shook his head. "No," he said softly. "You needed to know who I am and why I chose you." Her heart pounded. Confusion and fear twisting together, he opened the box again, placing the metal, the letter, and the photo gently on the table. "This was my family," he said, his voice low but steady. "My wife, my child, both taken by the war." His eyes grew distant, shadows of sorrow deep within them. "I could not save them. I was too late." The girl's throat ached as she stared at the photo, a woman smiling, a child holding her hand. They looked warm, alive, happy. So different from the world she knew. She whispered, "I am not them." He nodded slowly. "I know," he said, "but I will not fail again. Not while I can still protect someone." The words struck her like fire. Protect. No one had ever used that word for her. She felt the weight of it, heavy and strange. Yet she did not know how to answer. Tears burned her eyes, but she held them back. Slaves were not allowed to cry, not allowed to show weakness that night. The bond between them grew stronger. She no longer feared his silence. Instead, she feared something else. She feared her own heart, because deep inside, she wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe she was more than a slave, but danger was never far. In the dark corners of the town, the slavers whispered, "The human keeps her." One growled, "He hides her in his house." Another hissed. They passed coins between them, sharpening blades. "She is not his to keep. She is ours. And we will take her back." The girl did not know they were coming. She only knew the strange peace of the house, the warmth of food, the sound of his voice. She began to trust him. Little by little, each day her walls weakened. Each night she dreamed of freedom. But the shadows were moving, and soon the truth of trust would be tested with blood. The morning sun rose over the town. Shadows stretched long across the narrow streets. The human prepared his bag, filling it with supplies and tools. The alien girl stood near the door, her hands clasped tightly. She had begun to trust him, little by little. His words stayed in her heart. "You are not a slave here." But the fear inside her had not vanished. It whispered that peace never lasted. Not for someone like her, in the dark alleys beyond the market. The slavers gathered, their eyes burned with greed, their voices low and harsh. "The human keeps her hidden." One said, "She belongs to us." Another growled. They sharpened blades and loaded weapons. Their leader, a scarred man with cold eyes, smiled cruelly. "Tonight, we take her back," he said. The girl felt unease as she followed the human into town. The people stared, their whispers sharp as knives. Some mocked her, some spat on the ground. But the human ignored them, his step steady, his face calm. She walked close behind him, her head lowered. For the first time, she felt less alone. They stopped at a shop, the human buying food and medicine. The shopkeeper glanced at the girl. His eyes filled with contempt. "Why waste coin on that creature?" he asked. "She is not waste," the human replied firmly. His words silenced the shopkeeper, though the hatred in his eyes remained. As they left the shop, the girl whispered, "You speak for me?" The man nodded, his gaze fixed ahead. "I will always speak for you," he said. Her heart trembled at his words, unsure how to hold them. That evening, the house grew quiet. The girl sat by the window, watching stars flicker above. The human sharpened a small blade, his movements calm. "And practiced. You expect danger," she whispered. He looked at her, his eyes steady. "Yes," he said, "they will come. But I will be ready." Her chest tightened. She had seen men fight before, seen blood spill on the ground, but never had someone spoken of danger with such calm. She wanted to ask why he risked so much for her, but fear held her tongue. When the night deepened, shadows moved outside the house. The slavers crept closer, their boots silent on the dirt. Inside, the girl felt the air shift. Her heart racing, the human stood, his hand on the blade. "Stay behind me," he said quietly. The door crashed open, wood splintering under heavy boots. The slavers poured in, eyes gleaming with cruel hunger. "There she is," one snarled, pointing at the girl. "She belongs to us." The human stepped forward, placing himself between them and her. "She belongs to no one," he said firmly. His voice cut through the chaos like steel. The fight began, fast and brutal. The human moved with strength and skill. His blade flashing, a slaver lunged, but the man struck him down. Another swung a club, but he blocked it, pushing back hard. The girl stood frozen, her body trembling. She had seen fights before, but never one fought for her. A slaver grabbed her arm, pulling her forward. She cried out, fear surging through her veins. The human turned, his eyes fierce. With one swift move, he drove the attacker back. Stay away from her, he growled. Blood stained the floor, the smell sharp in the air. The slavers faltered, realizing this human was not weak. Still, their leader stepped forward. His scarred face twisted in anger. You cannot keep her, he hissed. She is ours. She will always be ours. The human lifted his blade, his voice steady. Not while I live. The leader laughed, cruel and cold. Then you will die, he said, lunging forward. Their blades clashed, sparks flying in the dim light. The girl's heart pounded, her breath shallow. She wanted to run, but her legs refused to move. She could not leave him. Not now. The fight raged, each strike echoing through the small house. Finally, with a sharp movement, the human disarmed the leader. His blade pressed against the man's throat. Leave, he commanded. The slavers hesitated. Fear flickering in their eyes, one by one, they pulled back, dragging their wounded with them. The leader spat on the floor, his eyes filled with hate. This is not over, he swore. Before slipping into the night, silence returned, broken only by the girl's trembling breaths. The human lowered his blade, blood streaking his arm. He turned to her, his eyes soft now, not fierce. Are you hurt? He asked. She shook her head, tears sliding down her cheeks. Her voice broke as she whispered, You fought for me. He nodded once, his expression calm. I told you, he said. You are safe here. She wanted to speak more, but the words would not come. Her heart was too full, too heavy, too new, that night. As the human cleaned his wounds, the girl sat silently by his side. She no longer doubted his strength, no longer doubted his will, but fear still lingered. The slavers had not been defeated, only delayed. They would return, stronger and angrier. And when they did, the fragile bond between human and alien would face its hardest trial. The night after the attack was heavy with silence. The girl sat awake, her wide eyes staring at the shadows on the wall. Every creak of the house made her heart jump. She could not forget the slaver's promise. This is not over. The human cleaned his blade. His movements steady, but his eyes carried the weight of thought. He knew the slavers would return, not just with a few men. They would come in numbers, stronger, armed, and furious. The girl whispered, her voice shaking. They will come again. The man nodded, his jaw tight. Yes, he said, that is why we cannot stay here. Her breath caught. This small house had been her first taste of peace. Leaving it felt like tearing away the fragile safety she had found, but she trusted him. If he said they must leave, then it was truth. The human began to gather supplies, food, water, medicine, a blanket. His movements were fast but careful. Every item chosen for survival. The girl watched, her hands clutching the edge of the table. Finally, she whispered, Where will we go? He looked at her, his eyes steady. Far from here, he said. To a place where they cannot follow, where they have no power. Her heart stirred, but doubt clung to her. No place is safe, she murmured. He placed a hand on her shoulder, firm and warm. With me, he said, you will be safe. When the first light touched the horizon, they stepped outside. The town was waking. Merchants lifting shutters, children chasing each other. But whispers followed the pair as they walked, some voices sharp with mockery, others low with suspicion. The girl lowered her head. But the man did not flinch. He guided her through the streets with steady steps. Beyond the edge of the town lay the wildlands. Tall grass swayed in the wind. Forests stretched dark and deep. It was a dangerous path, but safer than the town now. Marked with enemies, the girl hesitated at the tree line. Memories of chains and hunters filled her mind, but the man's voice pulled her back. "Trust me," he said. "I know the way." They moved through the forest, the air thick with damp. Earth's birds scattered as their footsteps disturbed the quiet. The girl stumbled once, unused to the rough path. The man caught her before she fell, steadying her gently. Her heart beat fast at his touch. Not from fear, but something she could not name. Hours passed, the sun climbing high above the trees. The man stopped by a stream, kneeling to fill a flask. The girl knelt beside him. Dipping her hands into the cool water, she looked at him, her voice soft. "Why do you do this?" He met her gaze, his eyes calm, because no one deserves chains. He said, "Because I chose you." Her chest ached at his words. Never had anyone spoken to her like this. Not as property, not as burden, but as a person, before she could answer. A sound cracked through the forest, a twig snapping too heavy to be an animal. The man rose instantly. His eyes sharp, he motioned for silence, pulling her behind a tree. Through the leaves, dark shapes moved, the slavers, their weapons. Glinting, their voices low, they went this way. One growled. The girl's heart pounded, terror flooding her veins. The man's hand closed around hers, firm and grounding. "We must move," he whispered. They slipped deeper into the woods, steps quick but quiet. The girl's breath came fast, each sound of pursuit pressing on her chest. The forest seemed endless, branches clawing at their clothes. Yet the man led with certainty, weaving through paths unseen. But the slavers were relentless. Shouts echoed behind, closer and closer. The girl stumbled again, falling to her knees. Tears burned her eyes. "Go," she gasped. "Leave me." The man crouched before her, his voice fierce. "I will never leave you." He said, "Get up. We run together." Strength stirred within her at his words. She rose, her legs shaking but determined. Together they pushed forward, deeper into the wild. At last, the trees parted, revealing a ravine. A narrow bridge of rope and wood stretched across, swaying in the wind. The man looked at it. Then at her. "It is dangerous," he said, "but it is our only way." Behind them, the slavers. Voices grew louder, closer. Without hesitation, he stepped onto the bridge, holding out his hand. "Come," he urged. The girl placed her trembling hand in his. Each step on the bridge creaked, the wood bending under their weight. Her heart raced. The drop below a black void, halfway across. The slavers burst from the trees. "There!" One shouted, weapons raised, arrows whistled through the air, striking the ropes. The bridge shuddered. Strands snapping, the girl cried out, clutching his arm. The man tightened his grip, pulling her forward. "Do not look down," he said. "Just hold on." The last plank shook as they reached the far side. Behind them, the bridge gave way, crashing into the ravine below. The slavers cursed. Trapped on the other side, their rage echoing in the air, the girl collapsed onto the ground, trembling. The man knelt beside her, his voice calm, though his chest heaved. "We are safe, for now," he said. She looked at him, tears in her eyes. "You saved me again," she whispered. His gaze softened, steady and sure. "I will always save you," he said. The forest around them was vast, the future uncertain. But in that moment, she felt the chains of fear weaken for the first time. Hope stirred in her heart, fragile but alive. The forest stretched endlessly before them. The girl walked close to the human, her legs sore, her breath heavy. The memory of the broken bridge still echoed in her mind. She could hear the slavers curses as if they still chased her. The man's eyes moved carefully over every path. He knew the slavers would not give up. They would search for another way across the ravine. Time was short, but hope was not lost. The girl whispered, "Where? Will we go now?" The man glanced at her, his face calm. "There is a place," he said, "far inside the forest, where even slavers fear to enter." Her heart quickened. "Why do they fear it?" she asked. The man's voice was steady, but low. "Because it is hidden, and it does not welcome greed." They walked for hours, the forest thick with silence. Strange sounds echoed in the distance. Birds crying, branches snapping. The girl felt unease grow inside her. Yet she trusted his steps. He moved as if he knew this path well, as if he had walked it long ago. At last, they reached a wall of stone, half covered by moss and vines. The girl stared, confusion in her eyes. "There is nothing here," she whispered. The man placed his hand on the stone. Pressing firmly, the ground trembled. A hidden door shifted open. Her eyes widened as the dark passage revealed itself. "This," the man said softly, "is the sanctuary." They entered. The air cool and damp, torches flickered along the walls. Though no hand lit them, the girl shivered. "Who made this place?" she asked. The man's voice carried respect. "Long ago, humans and others built it together. A place for the hunted, a place for the broken. It was forgotten by the world, but not by me." The tunnel opened into a vast cavern. Waterfalls trickled from the stone. Glowing plants lit the walls. The girl gasped, her fear momentarily replaced with wonder. "It is beautiful," she whispered. The man nodded, though his face remained serious. "Beauty is not enough. It must also keep us safe." He guided her deeper to a chamber with carved stone beds and supplies. "You can rest here," he said. She touched the stone, tracing the marks left by hands long gone. Her voice was soft, almost breaking. "Others lived here before us." The man's eyes grew distant. "Yes," he said. "Others who fled. Chains, like you." Her chest tightened. For the first time, she did not feel alone in her suffering. This place carried the memory of others like her. And the man who stood beside her had chosen to bring her here. But peace was fragile. Outside, the slavers searched. Their leader swore vengeance, his scarred face twisted in rage. He would not stop until he had her back, and the human's defiance burned like a wound in his pride. Inside the sanctuary, the girl could not rest. She sat near the glowing plants, staring at their light, her thoughts tangled with fear and hope. At last, she spoke, her voice trembling. "Why did you bring me here when it is so dangerous?" The man sat across from her, his hands resting calmly on his knees. "It's because chains break only when someone dares to fight them," he said, "because I could not watch you suffer." Her throat tightened, her heart heavy with emotions. She did not understand. She whispered, "No one has ever fought for me before." His gaze softened, though his voice remained firm. "Then let this be the first time, and not the last." Silence stretched between them, not empty, but full of unspoken words. The girl lowered her head, tears glistening in her eyes. She was no longer only afraid. She was beginning to believe. That night, the sanctuary felt alive. The waterfalls sang softly. The glowing plants pulsed with light. The girl lay on the stone bed, but sleep did not come easily. Her mind turned again and again to the human's words. "I chose you." They echoed in her chest, filling her with warmth and confusion. The man did not sleep either. He sharpened his blade, his eyes never leaving the shadows at the tunnel's entrance. He knew safety was only temporary. The sanctuary could hide them for a time. But the slavers' hunger would not die. They would return, stronger, more desperate, and when they did, he would be ready. The girl rose quietly, walking toward him, her steps soft on the stone floor. She stood before him, uncertain, her hands trembling. Finally, she whispered, "If they come again, and you fall, what will happen to me?" The man looked up, his eyes steady. "You will not be alone," he said. "As long as I breathe, I will fight for you. If I fall, then fight for yourself, because you are no longer weak. Not while you have hope." Her chest ached at his words. But strength stirred inside her. For so long she had thought herself powerless. But here, in this hidden sanctuary, under his protection, she began to imagine something she had never dared before. A life without chains. As the torches flickered, the cavern held its silence. The girl returned to her bed, curling into the blanket. But this time, she did not dream of slavers, or chains, or cages. She dreamed of freedom, and though the night outside carried danger, inside the sanctuary, hope had taken root, fragile but unshakable.